Welcome to another community conversation from Peaks Island Radio. I'm glad to be joined today by Danielle Madore and Sage Hayes. They're here to talk with us about an upcoming community dance happening this Friday from 6 to 10 p.m. It's going to benefit artists on the island, and it's called the Spring Hop. Can I have the details of the Spring Hop? Like, let folks know what it is, when it's happening, and what the goals are.
It's on Friday the 15th. It's from 6 to 10. And it's a $10 donation to get in. 14 plus for age-wise, so high school and older. And it's BYOB. Anything else?
It's a new Brackett Church.
Yep.
And yeah, come one, come all. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a nice mix of music.
Absolutely.
Cross generations, a little something for everybody.
Yes.
Great. So you say come one, come all, and I know from talking to you about this beforehand that there's a lot behind that. Can you talk a little bit about the way that you're trying to make this dance accessible to folks on the island?
Sure. Well, I think maybe I'll just start with kind of how I got involved, if that's okay, kind of a roundabout way to talk about that.
Absolutely.
I moved out to the island about a year and a half ago, and kind of laid low, and took the opportunity to go to this like ball gown dance last December, and because I love to dance, and I walked in, and the floor was just packed with like all my neighbors in these like fabulous dresses, just having a blast, and it was so exciting to really feel like how much interest there was and like availability there is to just like come and have a great time together and have a lot of fun and just kind of like throw down on the dance floor and get to know each other in a different way. And so I was just like so excited that maybe we could do more of that, because, it's a nice counterbalance to so much of what people are dealing with in this kind of crazy world right now. And dancing and coming together, there's a simplicity to it that is just it's just like, for me, so helpful as a way to be with each other without having to kind of move some of the heaviness and keep it simple. So I would say, like, in that spirit, for me, I got really interested in collaborating with I bumped into this amazing woman on the island, Madore Thompson, and we were just walking off the ferry one day, and we didn't even really know each other. And she's like, Sage, because we had seen each other at Sarah Quatera's locomotion dance class. And that's the first time we ever met, and had a nice little chat there. And she was like, Sage, can we do more dancing? And it was cute. She just she just said that to me, and I was like, definitely we can do more dancing, like what would you imagine, and she kind of shared like what she'd like to do. And I was like, it just seems like this is a place, like this is an island where we could do that. It doesn't seem that hard to just kind of keep, creating spaces where people have fun. And I was like, oh, let's connect with Danielle. Let's bring her in, because she had co-organized or co-organized.
I did it myself.
Okay, organized. Okay, organized.
I had some volunteers, definitely.
Perfect. Sure. Cool. That's great to know, actually.
Yeah.
Organized the ball gown dance, and really wanting to build on that momentum, and also all of the, the effort and what you learned from that, and of course have you be a part of the co-creation since you were already doing that. So I think in that spirit of like collaboration, and like it's so cool to have a planning committee with a couple of people who have different perspectives and visions, and I think it creates a bigger, I don't know, it just creates more reach. It creates more possibility. Mm-hmm. We're all friends with different people. Mm-hmm. So it kind of just like amplifies, like, this is really a community created event, for the entire community. So that's what I would say about it.
Well said.
Thank you.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And the idea of it being community created and for the community, I think really resonates. And then also the purpose behind it. Danielle, I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about what the dance itself is supporting in terms of a community reach.
Yes. In fact, it's part of the creation or the vision that I had when I spoke to Sage, was that I I wanted to emphasize the fact that I needed some more resources for my gallery, which is seasonal and is funded by the artists who show and myself. And I had some ideas about different projects that I wanted to do, including a group show. And I felt like it was a good opportunity for the dance to function as a fundraiser the same way it did for the ball gown party. And it was very lucrative. It was very successful. And I felt like that was a great way to, make a little nest egg for the gallery. And then I started thinking, well, maybe, if we continue to do this, and it's an offering that we do each time, we can sort of target a project, for an artist or for a group of artists. And that's kind of where it's at right now.
Great. And also, is it supporting the portrait project too?
That's one of the projects that I'm definitely looking at for, the next dance.
Great.
Because that was such a wonderful project, and it's
that's Judy Fitch's project.
Yeah,
right?
And she did that on her own without any financial help. And I think that if we want to see these things, everybody loved it so much. If we want to see these things continue, we need to start. I want to bring some visibility to this idea that artists need resources.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of addressing a lot of the piece that you spoke about, the community piece, and this idea of what can we do to help our neighbors who are artists and are bringing us these wonderful things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit more, because I think if you're not involved in the art world, some people might think to themselves, what do you need resources for? And maybe not from a critical point of view, but just a not understanding point of view. So can you talk a little bit about what these funds might be supporting for the artists themselves?
Specifically?
Mm-hmm.
Like what an artist's life looks like?
Yeah, exactly. Like walk me through what your financial needs might be.
Yeah, well, it depends on the kind of artist you are, obviously, but there's always supplies, there's space where people need to rent it. And also, I think I like to point out the fact that, you're as an artist, you have a regular job, and just like people do. And then on top of that, you have another job. That's pretty much how I see it. And that, you do a job so you can get paid. Mm-hmm. And then the other job is something that, you do because you love it, but also because, it's important to get it out there. It's important that you are bringing these things to people so that they can see themselves reflected. It's very powerful, when you can share your work as an artist. But it requires, some support in order to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And would you say it's kind of true, right, there's the archetype of the starving artist, and there's a lot of times, artists do their work in isolation and kind of just scrimp by. And so maybe is this kind of this sort of seems like an effort to kind of maybe expand the possibility around, especially on Peaks Island, where we're so resource rich, not only in money, but in love and in care of each other and in community. Absolutely. It feels like we could actually kind of really fill in so much more support for all of, for any artist that we are so lucky to have out here, to kind of just open up the resource flow more so that it's generativity versus scarcity and depletion, and that helps everybody.
I agree. I absolutely agree. It's and I also what's the phrase, attention flows. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Energy. What is it?
Energy follows intention.
Yeah, basically that's what it is. So I think that calling attention to this makes a lot of sense, right? When you put attention towards something, then people start to say, oh, right, I would like this thing to continue.
Yeah.
I think it's just as simple as that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it can be it's so cool because there's so many opportunities like where people are working in isolation and people just make assumptions about that. And it's kind of like part of, I think, what we need to do on the planet, not just the island, is to create more of the we, right? Like, and to kind of, to check our assumptions and kind of like get more curious about like what does anybody need? What do our elders on the island need that we could so easily offer, or what do the artists need? And because it's really right. It's just kind of like a beautiful, sort of commitment to interdependence, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. I think that's really well said. When I think about that, I think about some ways that we have started to think interdependently, right? Like we have the Peaks Island Fund that supports nonprofits. And I wonder if maybe part of your goal or part of your vision might be having some sort of long-term or stable support for artists in that way. Is that what you're kind of hoping to see? You're going to experiment with this and maybe hope grow it into something?
I would love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because artists need help with housing, that's another thing that is, it's just in general, I think, trying to produce art is a bit destabilizing in general. And just because of the choices that you have to make, there's a lot of choices that you have to make about how you spend your time and what you spend your money on. And so I think that, if we value these people, which everyone says that they do, I think that it requires and I think it's possible here in this area. I think that we can do that for people. And I think, bringing this to its fullest potential would be amazing.
What's one thing, like, if we brought it to its fullest potential, like what's one thing you would imagine would be happening?
I mean, I feel like I'm limited. I feel like that's why it's nice to talk to other people about it, and just beginning the conversation is where I am at this time. So I think it requires a lot of different people's ideas about what could happen.
Totally. Yeah.
I don't feel like I have the answer.
Oh yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's great. So imagine that the dance is wildly successful.
Yes, we are. And we want you all to come.
Yep.
And it reaches your goals of being able to fund the projects that you talked about. What do you see as the next step? So we've talked about sort of the wild vision of being able to support the arts, but if this dance really does it, and you get to a place where you think, yes, we can totally make this happen, what's next for you?
Yeah, I feel like that once we see it sort of working, then I feel like it's going to inspire more ideas about what we want to do or what we want to see. And hopefully people will come to either Sage or myself and start talking to us about what they would like to do. So, whether it's somebody at the gallery who wants to, let's say, do a performance, and they just want to, come in and do that for a day, this would be an opportunity to support them, and also would give me funds to use for, the designer that I use for my promotional stuff and the time that it would take for me to kind of, support them in any way. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with it specifically. But I'm open to whatever this generates. I feel like this is just a start.
Do you potentially see creating sort of like the ladies' ball, creating a tradition of doing dances as a method of supporting the arts?
I think that what you spoke about when we first started is important, right? You walk in, you see all the people, you see them together, and it's kind of like, it's a no-brainer. That's what I think. Yeah, right. It is. It's kind of like, it's something, right? Like humans have danced forever, right? Like all of our lineages have movement and dance, and just like music. And it's a way that, even if we've forgotten or we feel disconnected from our bodies,
everyone can come, even if they're sitting in a chair, and, like listen to a nostalgic song and feel the community coming together. So there's a real, like, there's just a real potency in kind of a simple way, kind of like we've always done this. It's not something you have to think about too much. You just put a little music on and people start to, to find their way. And I think it's a no-brainer because we've been doing it forever, like as people. And it's a no-brainer because most of what we do is we're doing. Right. We're doing a lot of things. We're having a lot of meetings. We're doing a lot of doing. And I think part of it maybe is a little bit of a counterbalance of like being and just enjoying for pleasure and moving in your body and just having a good time. And, so I think there's maybe a way that that we can even support that idea of coming together in community like that. That's not so much about working things out. It's just about community and fun.
Right.
Right.
And you mentioned nostalgia too.
Yeah. Say more about that.
Well, I think when we have spoken previously, we had talked about the idea that this is something that people used to do a lot more.
Right.
And on a regular basis. And that it feels missing, I think, from our lives at this point. And there's a lot of things that are good that no longer exist, or they exist rarely, and I think this is one of them. This is an opportunity for people to, see their neighbors and do something together that is fun, exciting, gives everybody kind of an outlet for whatever they need. Whether it's, you could look at it like it's an opportunity for exercise, or it could, there's layers to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you named that it's missing. I really agree. I think that's actually really important to say. Yeah, and I think it's really cool to I don't know, like at the ladies' ball, I already kind of said this, but I'm going to say it again because it was one of my favorite parts of it was I just kept looking across the room and seeing all these people I would see at the grocery store and on the ferry, and like whatever, we'd be walking our dogs, and like we never said hi. We haven't said hi because that's we just sort of move about on the island. But it was so cool to be like, I felt like I got to meet my neighbors in this whole different way, and most interestingly in more joy.
Yes. And
that, I think, is a really special state to be together, and that should not just be reserved for weddings, so I think I think that's really beneficial because it builds community when we see each other in all these different ways. Like it just strengthens things, I think, I don't know, we just get to know each other, and and in a way that where maybe it's a little bit more relaxed, or there's flow or something.
Have you heard this idea about when you're in a relationship with somebody, that relationship is enhanced when you see that person doing something unusual, or when they're in their element and you're kind of often, the sidelines watching them from across the room? That's when those relationships become enhanced in this way. And I feel like I just thought of that as this is kind of like that.
That's beautiful.
Amongst your
I
neighbors.
love that.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the ladies' ball.
Like.
Yeah. That's exactly how it felt. Yeah. Like I never saw those people the same after that, and it was so much easier for me to come up to them, and like Mavorning and I, like just dancing together at Sarah's class. It's like, it just was like this really easy connection. So, it's art in itself. It's a community art.
I think that's really beautiful. Listening to the two of you reflect on that, it made me think about how imbalanced our day-to-day is sometimes, right? And I think maybe even more so since the pandemic, where we're not, never mind seeing each other in community in that way, we're not really experiencing life as fully as we can. And I wonder if you have thoughts about that. Obviously, we're talking about dance and movement, and I think that that's a thing that a lot of folks lack now, because you're right, we go to the grocery store, or we go for a walk with our dog, but I don't know if people are like moving for joy as much anymore. And I wonder if you have some reflections on that, either personally or what you think of sort of the state of community right now in that way.
I grew up in New England, and I grew up in Rhode Island, and my family, like we didn't dance in my family. There was music. My Nana played the piano in the holidays, and that was always kind of a really joyful time where there was a different way of, like, the room was different. We all got to be together in a more resonant way, and then, of course, like I would say school dances, I would throw down for. I love the school dances, and especially when there were themes, and they were also really, really fun, and I'm sure a lot of people would say that, and then a lot of people probably say the opposite too about school dances because they're so fraught with, who's with who and all the things. So I don't know. I just am thinking about like just the culture of the pandemic or of New England and of course this political state in the world, and not to get too big, but how it's easy to contract right now, and I find that true in my body. There's any number of things to be upset about or afraid of that are both real and sometimes perceived. And I think the pandemic and also just our, like, as the social fabric has gotten more individual, I think, right, we're maybe not as practiced in community living and community interdependence, although I think that's different out here on Peaks. So I think, I just think that dance and movement, if it's done in a way that's really accessible, like really makes it easy for people to enter wherever you are, you like to dance, maybe you feel uncomfortable. A lot of us feel uncomfortable dancing. It's like, can be really vulnerable and, to have eyes on you if you're moving your body. Like in New England, it's like if you move a little differently, it can be kind of nerve-wracking because people get afraid or they start to judge if you're like a little bit out of the box. So there's this way that, how do we, we haven't talked about this explicitly, but I think like, I think we share these values, Danielle, about like, how do we create space where people can feel welcome and safe, and like there's this really sweet exchange on Nextdoor where we posted about the dance, and one of our neighbors said like, I want to come, but I can't, I have to dance in a chair, and of course we're just like, awesome. Right. And then like, there's this whole like thread down, like, yeah, you can do the wiggle, you can do the wobble. And right. So there's this way that there's also this inhibition, and how I think part of the creation is like, how do we keep, really sharing with people the possibility that, just show up as you are. Right.
And I mean, the lights will be low.
Yep.
Right?
Nice.
So
I love this.
There's always that.
Yep.
And then there's going to be some sort of, other sort of fancy flashing sort of lights. So that's fun. So there's a lot of visual distraction. So people aren't going to be looking at you, what are you laughing at?
I just like that. It's great. It's true.
Yeah, and the music, you can you can count on it being very diverse. So, that's going to be kind of interesting and helpful too. So yes, we're creating the space. Sage and I are creating the space very mindfully to allow for people to really, enjoy themselves and not really think too hard on what it looks like or anything like that. Because that's a value we share. Right. Yeah.
Definitely. And it's and this is like this is an iteration from the ladies ball, and we're going to keep learning about how to create the most like supportive space where, anybody who wants to come. So we're also really welcome to ideas around that.
Yeah. It's going to be a learning experience for sure. For me, I know. And we'll see how it goes. And, we are talking about doing it again in about 2 months. After this one, once we see how it goes, we'll put our heads together about that. And that's where we're at.
Fantastic. And just to wrap up, of course, I'll ask if you have final thoughts too, but the event is happening at New Brackett Church. And I wonder if you could talk just briefly about how that relationship's gone in terms of using the space, and if you find it to be, collaborative, or I guess if you find it to be sort of easy to do things in community based on the partnership.
This is one of the first things that I've gotten involved with to actually try to co-organize since I've moved out here. I also teach another dance class at New Brackett Church, so I do now have a little bit of experience with them. And I have been so, it has been so easy to collaborate with them. They're so kind. They're so encouraging. They're we're so excited to put events on their calendar. And there's an ease in renting that space or using that space that is so unusual from what I'm used to in Portland or in other places where I've put on events. It really just feels like it's kind of like there's just a yes, right? The overlap is almost implicit because it feels like their value is around like creating, like sharing their space with community and for community and to build community. Mm-hmm. And that is the experience that I've had not only in, communicating with them and all the details and logistics, but I've also gone to church a couple of times and I have just been to be honest, it's been kind of moving how community-based that church is and the spirit of it it's been quite inspiring actually. And I say it kind of with like surprise because again, my church history is very uninspired. So they just make it easy. Will and Debbie, who and anybody who's using the space when I've gone there is just like, what are you doing? Like, how can we help? And can we move these things and make it your own? And it's that is so unusual. People are often institutions are usually so controlling about their space. And it's like, okay, we know it's like they have policies, but they're just very easy to work with. So I don't know if you wanted all that, but
yeah, absolutely. That's great to hear.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just great to feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I think a lot of times folks do have like almost the opposite impression, right? That like, well, there's like obviously like a church lady stereotype, right? Where they're like very direct about what you can do, what you can't do. And like almost being like a turf war about space. And to hear that this, partnership with New Brackett for the use of the space is the exact opposite, I think, is both warming and wonderful for this dance, but then also I think maybe will help generate some of those ideas that you were talking about, Danielle, where you're hoping that more folks will have ideas or want to contribute in some way to building this support for the arts around the community.
Yeah. It's not exactly the same, but I feel like it's similar in that from my experience, having a benevolent landlord, in quotation marks, is key to any endeavor, any, household that you want to set up or any business, having somebody who has the space and what they're offering besides the space, meaning in terms of like how they feel about what you're doing and it's just so important. I've been in situations many times when that's not the case and it never goes well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
I like that.
I think it's a big piece here.
Absolutely. Yeah, they really make it easy.
Yeah.
And I also think like, not to like get too big, but I also think it's Peaks Island has a lot of amazing spaces we could dance in. Mm-hmm. And so including the church and, there may be some other cool collaborations and, that could be possible with some of the bigger spaces. So.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think it's good to dream big.
Yeah.
Right, any closing thoughts from either of you about the dance or what you hope folks will take away from this conversation ahead of the dance?
Yeah, I think I just, maybe I've already said this, but I think, I would just want to, this is going to sound kind of cheesy, but like thank Peaks Island for making it so easy to co-create, like events with. Like there's so much, I find that there's a lot of yes out here for community events, from the ukuleles to the, to the talks, to the music. And, I think so many of us really are we know that we know how special this is. And I I don't even know how I landed back here. I used to live here 20 years ago, and I kind of just feel like I'm being like, oh my God, I landed here, and it's beautiful. And I'm so grateful, and I'm so grateful for the people who make it, make this place what it is. And we really hope to see you come out. So come out to the dance, 6 to 10. You can come for 10 minutes. You can come for 4 hours, whatever you want. You don't have to stay, even if it's just a watch. Just we'd love to have you be a part of it.
That's great.
Yes, I agree with all of that. Good job.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for this great
Thank
conversation.
you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming over and having this conversation with us and share and helping us share it with the community. We really appreciate you and all the ways you're interested in supporting this.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a big part of the mission of the station to help foster that community too. So hopefully we'll have more partnerships in the future.
Yes. Yeah, we look forward to it.
Sounds good.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget the Hop is happening this Friday, March 15th from 6 to 10 p.m. at the new Brackett Church. Please do come out and support the arts community here on Peaks Island. And if you got some more ideas about how to do that too, reach out to Danielle and to Sage. You can reach out to me as well, Chris@peaksislandradio.com. If you like this conversation and you like the sense of community brought by Peaks Island Radio, please do subscribe to our podcast in your podcast app of choice or to our newsletter. You can check it out at peaksislandradio.com.